Everyone knew that Seraphina Vale kept Asher Blackwood around because he, like her lost love, possessed the rare Rh-negative blood type. Everyone, that is, except Asher himself. He also had no idea that she had fabricated a tale of kidney failure, manipulating him into willingly donating one of his own. Later, at an exclusive cocktail party, he overheard her confiding in a friend. Just think of Asher as a mobile blood bank for Jasper Thorne. If Jasper ever needs anything, Asher will be there. He's so easily pleased, the poor thing. A little affection, and he's putty in my hands. It was then that the brutal truth crashed down on Asher. The kidney he had so selflessly given was never meant for Seraphina, but for Jasper. 8 years of what he believed was deep affection had been built on a foundation of lies. When he confronted her, Seraphina simply scoffed, devoid of any remorse. "Did you honestly think I loved you? Don't be absurd, Asher. As long as you fulfill your purpose as my personal blood bank, I'll keep you around. But don't ever mistake it for anything more." Keeping him around, however, was becoming less and less of a possibility. Asher was dying. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but Ms. Vale already picked up the suit you ordered." "When was this?" This morning," the manager stammered, his momentary confusion quickly morphing into a practiced smile. Asher lowered his gaze. It was probably already at Jasper's house. He turned to leave, the manager bowing deeply as he escorted him to the door. The obsequious grin vanished the moment Asher was out of earshot. "Manager, wasn't it Ms. Vale and another guy trying on that custom-made suit this morning? Who's this one?" The guy this morning was Jasper Thorne himself, the Thorne Enterprises heir. This one, just a boy toy for Ms. Vale's amusement. He's got some nerve asking about clothes. Their voices, carefully modulated, were just loud enough for Asher to hear before he stepped outside. He ignored them. After so many years, he had become accustomed to such comments. He'd just have to choose another suit. Tonight was the wedding anniversary celebration for one of Seraphina's oldest friends. She had promised to bring Asher as her date. In fact, for years, he had been her only escort to such grand events. But this time, it seemed Seraphina had forgotten him entirely. As the party began, Seraphina made a grand entrance on the arm of Jasper Thorne. Asher was about to leave, but Seraphina's so-called friends blocked his path. "Asher, don't leave so soon. After all, you might not get another chance to attend such a gathering," chuckled one of Seraphina's childhood friends, a woman of refined elegance with a sneer lurking behind her eyes. Asher remained silent. She draped an arm around his shoulders. "Asher, I bet you $1 that Seraphina won't bring you here again." Her smile was saccharine, but her words were laced with venom. Jasper Thorne is back, after all. Asher watched Seraphina as she moved through the crowd, all smiles and champagne toasts. Beside her stood the handsome, radiant Jasper, the perfect match. Yes, Jasper was back, and she couldn't even spare a glance for Asher. The friend deliberately waved towards Seraphina. Finally, she spotted Asher standing in the corner. Weaving through the crowd, she approached him, her first words a rebuke. "Why did you come dressed like that?" Asher glanced down at his clothes. "I want to pick up the suit this afternoon." The manager said it had already been taken. His gaze lingered on Jasper's impeccable attire. Seraphina frowned slightly. "So, you did this on purpose? Asher, are you sulking?" Jasper just returned and didn't have a suitable outfit. Her explanation was casual, almost dismissive. Asher parted his lips to speak, but she waved her hand impatiently. "Just go, Asher. Don't embarrass me any further." The childhood friend couldn't help but snicker. "Forgive me, I didn't mean to. But Seraphina, don't rush Asher off. It's snowing outside. Even a stray dog deserves a warm place inside." Seraphina's expression hardened as she glanced at the swirling snow outside the window. Asher spoke softly. "I should get going. I hope you all have a good time." He had every reason to leave. It was something he should have done a long time ago. Seraphina had already forgotten that the suit he was wearing, the one she now found so distasteful, had been the first gift she had ever given him. The hotel hosting the party was located in a desolate area. Asher remembered walking for what seemed like hours through the blizzard before he finally managed to flag down a cab. He returned home and was soon struck by a high fever. Ever since donating a kidney to Seraphina, his health had steadily deteriorated, and just 3 days ago, he had been diagnosed with cancer. The Rh-negative blood type was already rare enough. The chances of finding a matching bone marrow donor were astronomically slim. He had intended to tell Seraphina as soon as possible, but she had been busy and hadn't answered his calls for 3 days. He had hoped to see her at the party, but had never found the opportunity to speak to her. After taking some fever reducers, he drifted into a fitful slumber. He was finally awakened by a frantic call from Seraphina. She told him to get to the hospital immediately. Thinking that something had happened to her, he rushed over. But he quickly learned that it was not her, but Jasper, who was in trouble. Asher, Jasper's anemic and almost fainted. You need to give him a blood transfusion. Asher froze, staring into her eyes, brimming with anxiety. They reflected his pale face, but Seraphina didn't seem to notice. His voice hoarse, Asher said, "I'm sick. I can't donate blood." Seraphina clicked her tongue in annoyance, her brow furrowed. "Asher, what's gotten into you lately? You keep calling me incessantly, throwing tantrums over a suit. Have I been too lenient with you? Now that Jasper's feeling unwell, you claim you're sick too. How is it that you're always sick?" Asher gave a bitter smile. "Can't you see?" Seraphina shoved him aside impatiently and ordered her bodyguard to restrain him. "I think you're just being dramatic. Now go and give Jasper your blood." He was too weak to resist. He was forced to donate blood to Jasper. He didn't know how serious Jasper's anemia was. All he remembered was that after finishing the transfusion, he didn't even have the strength to stand. Seraphina stayed by Jasper's side the entire time. He staggered to the door of the hospital room and accidentally overheard their conversation. "Jasper, don't feel guilty. Asher is just a mobile blood bank I keep around for you. His only purpose is to guarantee your health. I've taken care of him for so many years. Giving you one of his kidneys is the least he can do. Don't feel any remorse. Someone like him is so easily satisfied. A little affection is all it takes." Seraphina went on and on, but Asher's body had gone numb. His head was swimming. He crouched outside the room, trying to catch his breath, but found that he couldn't. Finally, a nurse noticed his distress and called a doctor, who rushed him into another room for emergency treatment. He didn't die, but lay on the bed in a daze. His mind was a chaotic blank. All he could remember were Seraphina's words. He first met Seraphina at a rare blood type meeting. Because of the uniqueness and rarity of Rh-negative blood, they had organized a mutual aid and exchange meeting. In case someone had an accident and needed a blood transfusion, they could save lives in time. Seraphina was the first to come and talk to him. Later, they fell in love, and in the 4th year of their relationship, she told him she had been diagnosed with kidney failure and needed a transplant. But it was really too difficult to have a kidney transplant with rare blood. So he gave her one of his kidneys. At that time, he loved her, and he was willing to do anything for her, as long as they could grow old together. But in fact, she didn't have rare blood type at all. His kidney was transplanted to Jasper. He didn't know how he got out of the ward. All he knew was that he had to leave that disgusting place. But the most ridiculous thing was that he had nowhere else to go. The house Seraphina bought was now like a huge canary cage. He sat on the floor of the living room, his heart aching so much that he couldn't move. He didn't even know when Seraphina came back. She sat on the luxurious sofa opposite him with an arrogant posture. "Asher, I've been very dissatisfied with you lately." She leaned over and glared at him, completely ignoring his weak state. He curled his lips in a faint smile. "Is that so?" Seraphina pursed her lips. "You're too disobedient. I just asked you to give some blood to Jasper, and you've been giving me the cold shoulder ever since. What more do you want?" "What more can I want? I'm just a mobile blood bank." "You heard it?" Seraphina was stunned. "You've even learned to eavesdrop?" He didn't reply, but looked at her silently. Finally, she averted her gaze under his stare, and her tone became even more forceful. "Since you've heard everything, I don't need to say more. Asher, I've been feeding and clothing you well for so many years. Now, it's a profit for you to just use a little of your blood. Do you know how many people can't live the life you have? He still didn't speak, just stared at her straightly. She didn't have that look a while ago. The way she looked at him wasn't so cold. He realized that he had never understood her. Maybe the current her was the real her. But you never asked me if I wanted this kind of life. His tone gradually cooled, but Seraphina suddenly laughed. Then what do you want, love? Asher, do you think I'll really love you? Do you deserve it? I've been kind enough to you in the past 8 years. You and Jasper have rare blood types. As long as you act as this blood bank, I can keep you forever, and what I said before will still count. When Seraphina left, she thought he would still be obedient as before. Their friendship was so sweet and intimate before. She hugged him and said that they would be together forever. But now, there was no such thing as forever. He didn't want to be by her side anymore. He wouldn't live long anyway. He originally wanted to pack some simple things and leave quietly. But he didn't expect Seraphina to arrange for people to watch him. When he was at home, those people guarded the door. When he went out, they followed behind him. He seemed to have become a veritable canary. The more he longed for the world outside the cage, the more he couldn't get out. His health was getting worse and worse, and he was always bleeding for no reason. Seraphina would ask the chef he used to like to cook for him. She would also order tickets for his favorite concerts and let him go to listen to them by himself. She had been raising him in her own self-righteous way, but she didn't know that he was already exhausted. Not long after the last blood transfusion, the media reported that Seraphina was going to get engaged to Jasper. One hot search after another. The comments were overwhelming, all mocking him. Some said he was like a simp who licked Seraphina for 8 years, but in the end it was all in vain. Some said he thought he could become a phoenix, but they didn't look up to him at all. Others said he was just cheap, and he knew he wasn't good enough for her, but he still fawned over her for so many years. He looked at the keyboard warriors who could take people's lives by moving their fingers online. His heart was actually calm. Over the years, he had heard countless gossips. Seraphina's friends looked down on him. Every time he saw him, what they said was even worse than these words. Every time, he survived thanks to his relationship with Seraphina. Now, he hoped that death would come sooner. The next time he saw Seraphina was when he went to the hospital for a checkup. He happened to see her and Jasper doing a premarital checkup. The doctor said that if he didn't get treatment, he wouldn't live for more than a month. He walked out of the consultation room and happened to see several doctors who looked like leaders surrounded Seraphina and Jasper. They looked extremely flattering. Asher. Jasper saw him first and called out his name directly. Seraphina looked over, and the eyebrows that were originally stretched out instantly piled up. Jasper walked over and asked, "Why are you here? Are you feeling unwell?" He didn't know where to start, so he just shook his head. Seraphina said unhappily, "Are you mute? Don't you have any manners?" "I'm fine, thank you for your concern." Jasper was about to look at his medical record, but he turned around and blocked him. He was stunned, then laughed. "I just want to know your health, after all, you know." Jasper was a person who looked very gentle and refined, but that was also why. His smile was always very fake. He even talked about the connection between him and him without any concealment. He pursed his lips. "I'm sorry, I'll go first." He turned around and wanted to get up, but he didn't want Jasper to snatch his medical record from behind. He opened it with a fake smile, his eyes falling on the paper. His heart tightened, and he ran over in 2 steps and took back the medical record. But Jasper made a gesture to fall backwards, and he didn't even touch him. "Jasper!" Seraphina helped Jasper up with quick eyes and hands. After Jasper stood firm, he walked over and slapped him. "You're going too far, Asher." The sound of the slap echoed throughout the corridor, and most people turned back to look. His face was sideways, burning with pain. Seraphina was very angry. "Jasper just got a little better recently. How dare you hit him? Don't you want to live?" "Asher, I've run out of patience. If it wasn't because you're still useful, I would have kicked you out a long time ago." While scolding, she checked on Jasper, and Jasper still pretended to say, "Don't be like this, Seraphina. It's my fault, otherwise Asher wouldn't be angry. But I just want to care about him. After all, we should both pay attention to health. Unexpectedly, I made him unhappy. Seraphina glanced at him, her eyes full of contempt. He deserves your concern, Jasper. With me here, you don't need to worry about those things. Jasper succeeded. He successfully made Seraphina more and more disgusted with him. He put his arm around Seraphina's shoulder and said that he would never leave her again. He finally couldn't help but laugh mockingly. What are you laughing at? Seraphina noticed his expression. Do you think we're funny? He raised his chin and answered softly yes. The anger that had just been calmed down by Jasper rose again in an instant. In front of everyone, he raised his right hand together. Want to hit me again? He took a step closer. What's a slap? You kill me. Everyone will save trouble. Seraphina laughed angrily, looking at him with disappointment and coldness in her eyes. Asher, do you think I have to keep you? That's why you're so unscrupulous? He raised his eyebrows, waiting for her next words. I can kick you out of my world in minutes if you're gone. There are others. If it wasn't for the past few years of friendship, you're so ignorant. I should have. He interrupted her. Then let me go. At that moment, he saw the incredulity in Seraphina's eyes. Yes, she should never have thought that he would really want to leave her. After all, the material things and status she gave him had already exceeded his ability for a lifetime. But it was different now. Seraphina suddenly stopped being angry. She returned to her superior expression. Okay, Asher, I'll give you what you want. He nodded. Okay. Looking up again, he found that there was a trace of panic in Seraphina's eyes when she looked at him. He felt a warm liquid flowing from his nostrils. The next second he vomited it out. Bright red blood was everywhere, and his vision began to blur. Asher. Seraphina walked up to him. What's wrong with you? Why is there so much blood? He shook his head, wanting to avoid her touch. It was too embarrassing to fall ill at this time. He thought he could hide the fact that he was going to die. But Jasper suddenly fainted over there. Seraphina shouted Jasper and ran past him to him. The familiar warmth was instantly stripped away, just like the heart that he had already detached from her. Before his vision turned black, he saw Seraphina and a group of doctors sending Jasper onto a stretcher. Finally, she seemed to look at him. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself lying on the hospital corridor. Dr. Song stood beside him and said with disappointment, Every illness will speed up your death, Asher. Why don't you get treatment? He lifted the quilt, got out of bed, and put on his shoes. Anyway, I'm going to die, and besides, I don't have any money. Have you been with her for so many years and got nothing? He looked up at her, and it turned out that even she knew. He said sarcastically, Yes, as you can see, I can only add a bed in the corridor. And that one is in the VIP ward. Dr. Song was silent, then took out 2 boxes of medicine from the pocket of her white coat. She pursed her lips and stuffed them into his arms. Then she said that she had sworn to someone and couldn't just sit by and watch him die, and ran away. This was the first time in a long time that he had laughed from the bottom of his heart. Seraphina should be with Jasper in the ward, so he could leave the hospital smoothly. And this time, no one was watching him anymore. He didn't go back to the gilded cage. Instead, he rented a homestay for a month with his own money. Before he met Seraphina, he was actually a cartoonist. Freelance, nomadic, always wanting to go wherever he wanted. He had quite a few fans, and his pen name was also well known in the industry. Later, when he met Seraphina, he stopped writing. In fact, he knew that people shouldn't lose themselves for anyone. But Seraphina was different at that time. She was rich but lonely, strong but gentle. She could only take off her strong woman status when she was in front of him. She said that she really wanted to hide him, so that he would only belong to her. People have illusions when they are overwhelmed by feelings. Just like him at that time. I wanted to be hidden away by her. I believed we loved each other. So when she claimed she couldn't find a kidney donor, I only hesitated for a single night before deciding to give her mine. True lovers shared their bodies, didn't they? I imagined we'd spend our lives together, inseparable. But everything came to an abrupt end when Jasper returned. I didn't even realize when I had become his personal blood bank and organ donor. I booted up my computer, logging into my online account. A flood of messages from eager fans poured in, all awaiting my return. I spent 2 sleepless nights crafting a new series. Hello, everyone. It's been a while. I'm back. This time, I'm bringing you my last work. Countdown to leaving this world. As soon as the first chapter was uploaded, the online community exploded. The master is back. My heartthrob has returned. But why is it the last work? The protagonist is so sad, coming down with cancer right away. Why so depressing this time, master? No way. Are you leaving again after finally coming back? Faced with countless questions from fans, I replied with a single sentence. Yes, the protagonist is me. I'm dying. On the day rumored for Seraphina and Jasper's engagement, there was no news. I had just updated the latest chapter and glanced at my phone. There was no grand, elaborate engagement ceremony that I expected. Was it a low-key affair, or had they not even gotten engaged? After thinking about those 2 questions, I promptly tried to slap myself awake. Either way, it had nothing to do with me anymore. These days since returning to my own passions were the most carefree I'd had in years. Song, my doctor, had become a friend. She would come by every now and then to check whether I had died at home. We both maintained a tacit agreement not to discuss treatment anymore. But these peaceful days didn't last long. Seraphina appeared. I was in the middle of drawing when there was a knock at the door. The knocking grew increasingly impatient. I went to open the door. Don't you know the password? Did you forget it so cute? I stopped in my tracks because it was Seraphina standing before me. Her face was dark and stormy. Saying that to whom? Nobody. How did you find this place? I looked away. She pulled a medical report out of her bag, pointing to my name on it. Is this yours? I thought back to the day I collapsed and Seraphina abandoned me. No wonder I couldn't find it. She'd picked it up. I watched her silently. Unexpectedly, Seraphina's eyes welled up with tears. Asher, is this you? I sighed. You've already seen it. Why ask a question you already know the answer to? She grew agitated. So you really have cancer, but you've been hiding from me? I didn't understand. We had already broken up at the hospital. What did she mean, hiding from her? I snatched the report from her hand. I wasn't hiding from you. You just didn't want to find me, did you? Seraphina was the sole female heir in her family. She had defeated all her older and younger brothers by relying on her extraordinary intelligence and drive. With her abilities, it would have been child's play to find me. She was momentarily speechless before grabbing my arm. Come with me to the hospital. I'll find you the best doctors. I'll find a bone marrow donor. I shook her off. What are you trying to do? We already broke up. She stamped her foot on the ground in frustration, acting like a spoiled child. Asher, don't make this harder. Without me, you'll just die. Do you realize that? Otherwise, what? I retorted. She stared at me in disbelief. My tone turned cold. I'm missing a kidney, and I have a blood disease. I was never going to survive anyway. How many people in the country had Rh-negative blood? And what were the odds of a successful bone marrow transplant? I only had 1 kidney, and it could fail at any moment. Would death be far away then? I saw Seraphina choke back a sob as she reached out to take my hand. I didn't know, Asher. I didn't know you'd get sick. That kidney. I really didn't know things would turn out this way. I pulled my hand away, feeling desolate. Ms. Vale, rare blood is rare, but not non-existent. Like you said, you can find another one for Jasper. I'm sick and I'm dying. Please, just leave me alone. I lowered my voice, fighting back the discomfort in my body. Seraphina bit her lower lip, shaking her head with tears in her eyes. She said that she didn't mean it. She said that she had thought I was just being willful and jealous. She didn't want me to leave, and she definitely didn't want me to die. She seemed about to cry, grabbing my hand again and refusing to let go. Just then, Song's voice rang out from the end of the hallway. Asher. Song was carrying a large bag of snacks and household items. She walked straight towards us. Seraphina instantly regained her composure and glanced at me. Then she stared intently at Song. She gritted her teeth and asked, Asher, who is she? Her tone wasn't a question. She already knew the answer. A friend. Friend? Seraphina's eyes narrowed as they fell upon the items Song was carrying. A friend buys you such intimate things? There was a box of men's underwear in the bag, and a pair of toothbrushes. Song didn't back down from Seraphina's pressure. She said familiarly, a lot of things didn't have your favorite brand. I'll go check again next time. I saw the provocation in her eyes and signaled her not to say anything rash. But Seraphina had already taken the bait. She scoffed. Asher, you haven't even left me for a few days. Ever since I found out you were sick, I postponed my engagement. And you're here, with this disreputable woman. Seraphina's words were too harsh. I couldn't let Song suffer undeserved slander because of me. I blocked Song behind me. Seraphina, watch what you say. Anger flashed in Seraphina's eyes as she started to launch into a tirade. Song directly retorted in a sarcastic tone. Postponed, not canceled. You're getting married anyway, so why do you care who Asher is with? Oh, don't tell me you're going to play the overbearing female CEO card? Please, that's so outdated. Asher is free to do whatever he wants. He doesn't need a soon-to-be married woman to tell him what to do. Song was young, with a straightforward personality, and never held back when she spoke. She could argue with the street vendor. Seraphina was no match for her. Her eyes widened, and she stammered without forming a complete sentence. Song pressed on. I'm sorry, Ms. Vale, but Asher is a patient and can't stand for long. We won't see you out. Goodbye. With that, she dragged me back home and slammed the door shut. After a long silence, Seraphina shouted outside the door. Asher, you'll regret this. Countdown to Leaving This World was a smash hit. It became my cancer diary. Many readers who were also suffering from cancer could relate to it. Fans speculated about who the female lead was based on. Song asked me whether the female protagonist was her. I said no, because the story was destined to end tragically. Song didn't deserve to be involved in this story. She deserved a better life and a healthy partner. Actually, the original plan for the female protagonist, I was thinking of Seraphina. After all, we were the best match for the ending. A man who was dying and a woman who no longer loved. It's a perfect match. Seraphina hadn't come back since the last time she made a scene. She was a determined woman and wouldn't lower her head a second time. My body was getting worse, and I could barely hold a pen. The view outside the window was still pristine white. Song's expression was growing heavier every day. On the day of Seraphina's wedding ceremony, an ambulance parked outside my apartment building. As she signed the marriage certificate with Jasper, decked out in finery, I closed my eyes for the last time. After my death, everything was handed over to Song. She helped me publish the final chapter of the comic, helped me take care of the funeral, and finally used my phone to send a message to Seraphina. Asher is dead. Seraphina was restless throughout the ceremony. She heard the notification on her phone. Normally, it wasn't proper to look at one's phone at a time like this. But she had a feeling that something had happened, and glanced at it. It only took one glance to leave her stunned. She repeated those 4 words over and over in her mind. Tears finally flowed. That day, Seraphina told all her friends and relatives who were present that day. The wedding is canceled. Elders said that people could hear the sounds around them after death. That was the final moment when the soul left the body. I imagined that it must have been like that. Not only could I hear, but I could also see. I saw Seraphina appear in the morgue, wearing a magnificent wedding dress. Her crown was askew, and her hair was disheveled. She stood at the door, not daring to take another step. Impossible, impossible. He's lying to me. You're all lying to me. Seraphina grabbed a morgue employee. Song, wasn't she always by his side? Asher couldn't have died. I don't believe it. He's only 28. Even if he was sick, he couldn't have died so fast. Song appeared behind her, her eyes red and swollen. You knew he was only 28 years old. Seraphina rushed over, shaking Song back and forth. Where's Asher? Where are you hiding him? Song pushed her to the ground, pointing at the body lying on the bed. That's him. Go look. Seraphina was crying her eyes out. She forced herself to calm down. Then she walked step by step to my body, trembling as she uncovered the white sheet. My pale, gaunt face was revealed, and Seraphina couldn't hold back any longer. She bent down and cried loudly over me. I was looking for a bone marrow donor. I was looking all over the world for a bone marrow donor for you. Why didn't you wait for me? Asher, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Song wiped away the tears streaming down her face and said in a cold tone, He did it on purpose. Seraphina, why did his illness progress so quickly? It's because he deliberately didn't get treatment. Why didn't he get treatment? It's all because of you. What Song said was true. The moment I found out that Seraphina had deceived and betrayed me, I didn't want to live anymore. In this world, the only person I had an unending connection with was her. My parents died early, and I had been shuttled between relatives since I was a child. Not everyone would like an outsider. I suffered endless taunts. I drew comics to vent all the emotions in my heart. Just when I thought I would be alone for the rest of my life, Seraphina appeared. She was mature, beautiful, and exuded a captivating charm. She brought me not just love, but also a strong sense of family, complex feelings, a sister, a daughter, and even a mother. My dependence on Seraphina was extreme. In the past 8 years, I hadn't even noticed that she was lying to me. So when she said she didn't want me anymore, all my beliefs completely collapsed. Song sobbed as she talked about me. She berated Seraphina. You know that Asher is different from ordinary people, and you know how much he depends on you, but you still insisted on marrying someone else. Seraphina, the moment he felt that you didn't want him, he was already dead. Do you understand? Seraphina was gasping for breath as she cried. She caressed my cold face. I knew he wouldn't leave. I always knew it. But I never thought of not wanting him. I never thought he would die like this. I loved him. I've always loved him. That day, Seraphina cried a lot. She said that the family forced her to marry for the sake of business interests. She said that at first, she was indeed looking for a donor for Jasper. But she didn't expect that she would really fall in love with me. She really hesitated for a long time. There was really no one who was willing to donate, so she tentatively asked me. Her heart ached when she saw me agree. She said that she didn't dare to let others see her affection for me. She was surrounded by enemies who were always waiting to pounce. She didn't want me to become her weakness. But all of this had turned into the reason why she no longer loved me. Seraphina said that she regretted it. She wanted me to come back. Song laughed coldly. It's not possible anymore. That poor boy is never coming back. She put my bank card in front of Seraphina. This is the royalties Asher saved over the years. There's not a single penny in here that you gave him. He asked me to give it to you before he died. He said that you spent a lot of money on him over the years. This is to pay you back. When people die, their debts are canceled. I hope you don't think it's too little. Song turned and left. Seraphina stared at the bank card for a few seconds. Then, a cry of despair rang out from the morgue. Seraphina lost her mind. She used her power to steal my body. She built a giant ice room in her home and put me inside. She would always come in wearing a mink coat to accompany me. Lying in my stiff arms, she would say the love words from the past. Song knew about her crazy behavior and came to her many times. Finally, she said, Asher's last wish was to have his ashes scattered into the sea, but you've trapped him in this ice cellar. This isn't love. You're torturing him. Seraphina ignored her and continued to do as she pleased, until one day I heard her say in the ice room, Asher, I know you don't want to be frozen here, but I can't just burn you to ashes like this. You're missing a kidney. I'm going to get it back for you. I understood what she was going to do. Jasper's family was vast, with deep roots. This was the reason why her family had always wanted Seraphina to marry Jasper. She couldn't defeat the family all at once. She needed a plan and an opportunity. The opportunity came quickly. She secretly investigated and found evidence that the Jasper family was illegally evading taxes in the business sector. The amount of money involved was enormous, and she gleefully kissed my face in the ice room. Asher, I can get your kidney back. Because of Seraphina's machinations, the Jasper family was quickly investigated by the regulatory authorities. The Jasper family fell. Seraphina lured Jasper to her home and drugged him with a glass of wine. Then she brought him before me. When Jasper woke up, he was tied to a bed. Beside him was a pale, horrifying corpse. He screamed in terror, spewing profanities. Seraphina walked over, her eyes filled with a burning hatred. Jasper, Asher is dead. Do you know that if he hadn't given you a kidney, his illness wouldn't have progressed so quickly? He died before I could find a bone marrow donor for him, all because of you. Seraphina was wearing gloves and a mask and was holding a scalpel in her hand. She said, "Today, I'm going to take Asher's kidney back and return it to him." Jasper struggled, with only his mouth left to speak. "Seraphina, you be *tch. You were the one who made him give me the kidney. Now you're blaming me? Have you no shame?" Seraphina smiled grimly and then cried hysterically. "It was you who suggested that I go to Asher and ask for his kidney. It was you who told me to lie to him and say that I had kidney failure. Asher loved me so much that he gave me everything without hesitation. But I hurt him for you, you beast." She picked up the scalpel, no longer paying attention to Jasper's cries. Without even giving him anesthesia, she directly cut at the position of his kidneys. Jasper's cries of pain echoed through the ice room. He cursed his parents, cursed Seraphina, cursed me, and finally was only able to scream from the pain. Seraphina's eyes were glowing as she removed a complete kidney from Jasper's body. She held it up to me. "Asher, I got your kidney back. Don't worry. I specially learned how to do it. There's nothing of his here. It's very clean, very complete." She had completely gone mad. Finally, she cremated me and the extra kidney together. Watching my body being sent into the crematorium, she fell to the glass and cried. When the police found Jasper, he had already died in the ice room. Whether he died from blood loss or from freezing, I wouldn't know. My soul followed my ashes and was taken to the sea by Seraphina. This was a place we had planned to travel to together. The sea was emerald green, as if a spring filter had been added. I had watched it on the computer back then, fantasizing about embracing her on the ship. Seraphina knew that I had liked this place for a long time. She specially scattered my ashes here. She said, "Asher, I hope that in the next life, you will never meet me again. You have suffered so much in this life. In the next life, you will be born into a happy family. I will always pray for you." She glanced back at the police car that was approaching the shore. She smiled with relief. "Asher, I wanted to jump down and die with you. But you hate me so much, you wouldn't want to be with me after death. So I won't bother you. Rest in peace." Seraphina finished scattering the last bit of ash. My soul finally began to dissipate. In the last moment, I saw her calmly waiting for the police to arrive. She was right. We must not meet in the next life.